I was saying that my classes alone, they're not going to be enough for anybody to learn Arabic on it's going to be so slow and it's still going to be incomplete. You're going to need to do other stuff, like you said, conversation. You're going to need to do probably certain general rules. You're going to have to do some conjugation of verbs on your own. You're going to have to do certain things. You're going to have to do certain side work. And like I said, even just reading this text on your own, whatever we read, the page and a half, 2 pages we read in a day, read it again a couple times the next day, read it on the day off a few times. You figure if we read, say, 9 to 12 pages, through the week, you know, if we have how many days? We have 5 days of this. If you do, say, eight to 10 pages, then read those on Juma. Read those on Juma. Thursday night and Juma and stuff. Read them again to understand them. Plus, going over the previous texts. Plus, going over some conjugation of verbs and then trying to talk to. You're gonna have to do something outside of my class. It's not gonna be all you need. You know what I mean? No one program is gonna give everything you need. You're just not gonna find that. You're gonna have to supplement it with other things.
Yeah, you're right. For me, I think the main thing I want, like I told you, is reading. I want to get better in reading.
Well,
I,
you have to learn to read. If like you said, if I ask you why is hijra to dhamma, or why is it marfu, why is this, all that stuff. But when it comes time to read, you're very slow. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, you're
And
right.
and this is what happens with a lot of people. They put all this emphasis on grammar, and they can't read. You know, and and this is why we have this class, because some people overemphasize that grammar. People tell me all the time, I finished all 3 Medina books. I'm like, if you finish all 3 Medina books, you speak Arabic, man. You know, and the 3 Medina books are covered in 2 years. First book in the first semester, second book in the second semester, and the third book in the third and fourth semester. And after the first semester, they're able to sit in the classes of the Mashayikh and listen. They're able to hold small conversations. They're able to. You truly didn't do book one. You did the grammar of book one, but you don't know the vocabulary. You haven't practiced the conversational parts of it. You know what I mean? You haven't done what's necessary, because if you finish the Medina book 3, they go into the university after that. They
Yeah,
go into the university and all their courses are in Arabic, meaning they're listening to the sheikh in Arabic, they're taking notes in Arabic, they're reading the books in Arabic, they're doing homework in Arabic. The sheikh is telling them we're gonna go over pages 50 through 65 today. You know what I mean? So we're just gonna touch on what they're about, and it's upon you to go over it on your own tonight and review the last page. They're able to read 15 pages of home in Arabic tonight, and you finish book 3 and you're not able to do that. So you didn't really do book 3 properly. You know what I mean? You didn't do book 1 and 2 properly.
yeah,
And so a lot of times, like I said, I know a lot of people who know grammar. I know people who 8, 9 years ago, they knew grammar better than me. Probably better than I know it today. Right? They could tell you, meaning, they could tell you what this is, why is marfu, this is, mubtada marfu, bidam zahira, right? Faridatun, ala, hadi, umma, they could go on and on, give all the i'rab of all of that. And still today, 9 years later, they can probably do all of that better than me, except they still don't speak Arabic. 9 years later, you know what I mean? Now, I live in a Muslim country, and I have that advantage that I live in a Muslim country, an Arab-speaking country, and that I go to classes, and you know what I mean. They don't have that, so I have that advantage. But my point is still that they know all that grammar. But then if I ask them, what does this sentence mean? they could break it down, every particle of speech in it, like like their Ibn Hisham, the one who wrote Alfiyat Ibn Malik. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they ask, what's the meaning of the sentence? I don't know. Hijra, something, something, something. You know what I mean? so, so you got to have a balance. You know, you need enough grammar to continue. I asked one of the mashayikh here because I was taking a class and it was dealing with balaga. It was dealing with balaga here. What do you want
No,
to
I
call it?
read that too.
Huh?
I read that too.
Yeah, you can read it all day you want, but it ain't helped you. It ain't helped you in what you need though. Maybe in the
Exactly.
future, like I said, like I told Abdullah, this stuff might seem hard, and 5 years from now you'll appreciate it. So maybe 5 years from now you'll appreciate the balaga that you took, but it hasn't helped you up until this point. You see what I'm saying?
At all, at all.
And anyway, I asked the sheikh. I said, man, there's classes that are going on that I understand, and I really wanna take that book. This was a few years ago when my Arabic was just getting really good enough to understand the classes and really appreciate the information delivered in classes and stuff. I was like, even though I was going to classes before that and I was getting benefit, but I wasn't like I could really understand on my own. You understand? So I was like, without a lot of effort. I used to fall asleep in class and they'd be like, man, why you keep falling asleep? I'd be like, because my brain is just locked up. My brain is, I'm so tired from my brain locking up from trying to comprehend everything, all the words just going in. I mean, I'm just tired because I just woke up before I came to class. I'm not sleeping, but I'm tired from my brain. And I was to the point where now I was understanding everything in the class, and I couldn't sleep afterwards because I was so excited. I would come home, my iman through the roof, man. The sheikh said this, and so I asked the sheikh, I said, there's classes, because the balaga class, it went on for like 3 hours every week, 1 day a week. So I was like, sheikh, if I go, no, 2 days a week. I said, if I go there, I'm going to miss out on like 4 classes that I want to take. And he's a student of Sheikh Uthaymeen, one of the famous students of Sheikh Uthaymeen. So I said, I'm going to miss out on these 4 classes behind taking this balaga, which Allah knows best. I'm not going to benefit from it for a long time. Like my Arabic is not at that level, He said, man, I've never studied balaga in my life, and yet I understand the books and I can explain them, and I've never studied it in my life as a study. Not that he's never read about it, never read up on it, not benefited from it, but he never took it as a study. Even though Uthaymeen has books explaining it and teaching it. He said, I myself, I've never done it, and I understand what I read, and I'm able to derive stuff, and I'm able to understand and to teach. Take from Nahu, take from Balaga, take from Sarf what you need to understand. These are not sciences that are the goal in and of themselves. These are sciences which are tools to help you reach the goal, which is understanding the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you can understand a class and without Balaga, then understand it without Balaga, man. You don't need that class. Take what's going to benefit you now, because you don't know, how long you're going to live. You don't know what's going to happen to you, how long you're going to be in Kuwait. You don't know any of that. So don't worry about that, And that's what I take as my rule, man. Because like I said, you say you studied Balaga and you could tell me this and that, but Anyway.
Yeah, but I still remember some things in it, but I will tell you I cannot apply it. That's the problem. I remember all these tashbih, tamthil, all those things. I still remember bit by bit.
Right, yeah, I remember pieces of it too, because I took it for a few weeks before I was missing the classes, and I just wasn't, I wasn't feeling it. I was like, these classes, I come home from the classes, man, I'm so amped up, man, from understanding, you know, the book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Messenger, the Kalam of the Sheikh, you know what I mean? And I come here, man, and it's like boring, you know what I mean? And it's difficult, and I'm not able to apply it in my everyday studies, and you know what I mean? And so, like I said, I mean, the same goes for Nahu, you know what I mean? The more you understand it, then fine, but to just study it as a dry science, if someone's, for instance, someone was to go through the balaga of this book that we're reading, that's good for you. You would benefit from that, you know, because it would be something you could apply. But to just go through the rules and to go through some poem from the times of Jahiliyyah and this and that, man, that's not benefiting you right now. You want to be able to read Thalathat-ul-Usul with the Sharh of Fawzan, with the Sharh of Abdurrahman al-Qasim, with the Sharh of, you know, Sudais, or the Sharh of Bin Baz or Uthaymeen, or whoever it is, Sheikh Ubaid al-Jabari, or whoever Sharh you want to read, and you want to do it on your own. And Balagha and a bunch of Nahu is not going to make that, you know, possible. So anyway, if I can find somebody bi'idhnillah ta'ala to do the conversational Arabic, I will. Until then, you're gonna have to find another way, brother. I'm sorry.
No problem. At least I'm enjoying this, the reading.
And for you, you're going to have to read more. You're just going to have to read more. That's what you need help with. You know, Abdullah, he's come a long way in his reading, right? Even though he still has to come further. He's come a long way.
Got a long way to go.
He needs to continue that and work on, say, understanding, memorizing the words. You know.
Yeah.
But you know you can't teach.
But I might not be doing it right. But I think, you know, because I'm reading better now, and then I'm gonna start trying to memorize the word, because some of the stuff I can pick up, you know, stuff I already knew. But trying to vowelize it, that's where I had put my emphasis.
I'll try and apply your rules. I'll try and see if I can get up to 1 hour a day to read.
Well, I mean, technically, in a way, we do this an hour a day right here. This is an hour worth of reading, even though it's not 1 hour for you constant. You can add to it. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of people think, Akhi, I need to go read, say, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in of Ibn al-Qayyim, or I need to go read al-Ubudiyyah of Ibn Taymiyyah. No, you could just read Thalathat-ul-Usul. Read this book until you know this book. You see what I'm saying? Read Thalathat-ul-Usul. Read Qawa'id al-Arba. Read Nawaqid al-Islam. Read al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya. Read the basics until there's not a word in them that you don't understand. And that there's not a sentence in there where you stutter. Well, no. والهجرة فريضة على هذه الأمة من بلد الشرك إلى بلد الإسلام وهي باقية إلى أن تقوم الساعة. You know, and you could read it just fluently and you understand it. You know what I mean? And do that with just the text of Thalathat-ul-Usul. اعلم رحمك الله أنه يجب علينا تعلم أربع مسائل. You know, to just read Thalathat-ul-Usul without any breaks in the reading. And when you understand what you're reading, read Thalathat-ul-Usul like that. Read Qawa'id al-Arba like that. Read Nawaqid al-Islam like that. Read al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya, where you're reading it fluently from the beginning to the end. And until you're understanding everything you're reading from the beginning until the end. There's no need to go pick up another book. I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying there's no need to. You don't have to go outside of this. You just read these books until you understand, until you're able to read them fluently, and until you understand them and everything that's in it. In this way, and this is what you do in the future. This is what you do in the future with Bulugh al-Maram. This is what you do in the future with Al-Ubudiyya li Ibn Taymiyyah. This is what you do with, you know, whatever book it is you're going to read. The Quran. Read the page of the Quran until you can read the Quran fluently and you understand every word on that page. Don't memorize a new page unless you understand that word. Don't do it like we did in the beginning, like you did probably as a child, where you just memorize boop, boop, bop, boop, bop, boop, bop, beep, beep, boop, bop, and you just memorize sounds. No, memorize it where you understand every word on the page. Where if I said to you, for instance, if I was reading from Baqarah and I said, give me a second. Inna alladhina kafaru sawa'un akhadha ala hadha ashra sinina yad'u ila tawheed. Like, hold up, that's not right.
Yes.
Not because it's not what I memorized, because what I just said doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because what I just said was, except for those who disbelieve, verily those who disbelieve, and he took to that upon 10 years. So I know that don't make sense. If I mix up a Naziyat and Baqarah, if I mix up a Naba wa Surah Yusuf, if I mix up Yasin with Ahzab, I know I made a mistake. Because that doesn't make sense what I just said. And that's what you do. Read every page of the Mus'haf. When you conquer a page, then move to the next page. And by this, you're going to build your vocabulary, you're going to build your fluency, you're going to build your confidence, you're going to build your understanding. You know what I mean? All of that's going to take place. Do that with the Quran. Do that with, like I said, from the top of the page of the Quran to the end of the Quran. To Thalathat-ul-Usul, Al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya. A lot of people think that these books, but these books, I've been through them a lot of times. Right? But the reality is, you ain't never really studied it. Because if you studied it, you would know what's in the book. Al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya is the fundamental book of a Talib al-Ilm. It's a beginner book. But are we familiar with the book? How many hadith are in it? 40. No, 42. You see what I'm saying? What about the book? Are there weak hadith in the book? What are the weak hadith in the book? What are the hadith talking about? What is this? What is that? To know Al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya. But to us, it becomes so small and we want to move past it because we want to be raisins before we're grapes. You know? And it's just slow down. Knowledge is not easy. You're not going to progress to the books of Ibn al-Qayyim and Ibn Taymiyyah in a year. I'm not saying you can't read them. I'm not trying to scare anyone off from reading those books. Alhamdulillah, read them. But you're not going to be on that level where you're going to really establish yourself. And this is what we have to do. We have to do what's called a ta'sil, which is to develop a foundation. To develop a foundation for yourself. Read the simple books. Learn, understand, comprehend the simple books, and then move on. Right? We haven't been taught how to read. We haven't been taught how to understand. They say you should read a book. You should read a book 4 or 5 times. Right? And sometimes every time with a different explanation. So Thalathat-ul-Usul with Uthaymeen, with Fawzan, with Bin Baz, with Sheikh Ubayd al-Jabari, with Abdurrahman al-Qasim. Once you did that, you probably be pretty good at what's in Thalathat-ul-Usul. You know what I mean? And you'll be pretty good at understanding it. And then you should write your own summarization of Thalathat-ul-Usul. Summarize it on your own. And then you should, you know what I mean, teach it to someone around you so that this stuff will stick in your head. That's all I'm doing with you guys. It's sticking in my head. You understand? So, and then you move on. and then you move to another book. You know what I mean? You don't just read this book in a day, then go to the next book in a day, and go to the next book in a day. You're never going to memorize anything like that. You're never going to establish a foundation like that. You have to take your time. And if you're not going to take your time, then you're just rushing. Whatever comes at once, leaves at once. So you just have to not think that this stuff is too easy for me now. I need to go further. In English, it might be too easy for you, but in Arabic, is it too easy for you? For me, every time I read something in Arabic that I used to read in English, it's like I'm learning it all over from fresh again. Like I never read 40 hadith before. You know what I mean? Because I'm reading it in Arabic, it's like I never read it before in English. It's a whole new subject, a whole new world is opened up to me inside of that. So just take your time and read. So this is an hour. If you looked at that formula, this is an hour every day we do this. You know what I mean? And writing, you know, you do your homework from access to Quranic Arabic, that's going to give you some writing every day. Write Thalathat-ul-Usul. Take the text of Thalathat-ul-Usul and write it. Right? Take the text of Thalathat-ul-Usul and write it. If you're doing 100 hadith for memorization, take the hadith and write it. You know what I mean? Take those ayat inside of access to Quranic Arabic and write them. That's writing. Even just spend 10-15 minutes a day. Right? Do listening. You can listen to whatever you want. Whatever you want to listen to. Quran. That's not really enough though, except if you're trying to understand. Listen to, you know, Sheikh Ubayd al-Jabri is very clear. Sheikh Saleh Suhaimi is usually pretty clear. Sheikh Suleiman is very clear. You know, Sheikh Suleiman Ruhaili. Find a sheikh who's really clear to you. Listen to him. And then you're already reading. The only thing you need to do now is find some conversation. And we tried to do that. And like I said, I'm just not capable at this point of doing it myself.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. The advice.
Nah. So anyway, we got a half hour left. Let's see what we can conquer, huh? والهجرة فريضة على هذه الأمة من بلد الشرك إلى بلد الإسلام وهي باقية إلى أن تقوم الساعة. والهجرة, and migration or immigration, فريضة is an obligation, على هذه الأمة, upon this ummah, من بلد الشرك إلى بلد الإسلام, from the land of shirk to the land of Islam. وَهِيَ بَاقِيَةٌ, and it is remaining, right? It is lasting, from baqiya, ba, qaf, ya, to remain, to last. إِلَّا أَن تَقُومَ السَّاعَةُ, until the hour is established. تَقُومُ, تَقُومُ was تَقُومَ after an, right? أَن تَقُومَ السَّاعَةُ, until the hour is established. يعني وجوب هذه العبادة لا زالت. يعني meaning وجوب, the obligation, هذه العبادة, of this worship, لا زالت. لا زالت from zay, waw, lam. Actually, when you will look it up there, but then it's going to be zala yazulu, right? Zala yazulu, to cease. La zalat, it does not cease, it does not end. Does not end. Feminine because hijrah is feminine, right? وكذا إذا كان الشخص في مكان يعصي الله فيه. If a person, إذا كان شخص في مكان, if a person was in a place, makan is a place, يعصي الله فيه. يعصي Allah, Allah is disobeyed. يعصي man, Allah, Allah is disobeyed. Or here it would be yu'si Allahu. Why? Because yu'si is majhul. Allah is disobeyed. Not that he disobeys, but Allah is disobeyed. Yu'si is is majhul. Fihi. Allah is disobeyed in it. Walaysa bi shirk. And it's not shirk. Allah is disobeyed, but not shirk. Wa innama fihi fisq. Wa innama is a particle of hasr, meaning limited, limitation. So means here only. It's only fihi fisq. Fisq, it's only in their sins and corruption. Not shirk, it's just sins and corruption. فَيَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ الْحِجْرَةِ إِلَى بَلَدٍ فِيهِ طَاعَةٍ. فَيَجِبُ, so it's obligatory. عَلَيْهِ, upon him. Al-hijra, hijra is upon him, obligatory. إِلَى بَلَدٍ, to a land. فِيهِ, in it. طَاعَةٌ, in it is obedience. وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ مَخْصُوصًا بِالشِّرْكِ إِلَى الْإِسْلَامِ. وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ, and that is not, laysa is not a negation. وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ, and that is not, مَخْصُوصًا, from kha sad, meaning here specific, or basically specific for, or only for. بِشِرْكِ إِلَى الْإِسْلَامِ, it's not only or specific for shirk to Islam. بل حتى من بلد المعاصية إلى بلد طاعتي أو طاعة. بلدي من بلدي مجرور after من معاصية إلى بلد طاعة, from a land of disobedience to a land of obedience. ومن هنا, and from here, يتبين أنه لا يجوز, that it is not permissible, لشخص or لشخصي, for the person, and يذهب, to go, إلى الديار غير المسلمين, to the lands, the plural of dar. Dar is land. Diyar, lands. Not permissible for him to go. Ila diyar غير المسلمين, to the lands of the non-Muslims. غير المسلمين. إلا لحاجة, أو ضرورة, except for a need or a necessity. لحاجة, for a need. أو ضرورة, أو ضرورة, right? Or a necessity. Necessity is something, a need is something that you you need it in life to make your life better, but it's not something that you would necessarily like die without it. But it's something that is common that everyone might need. For example, we might say that might be, say, a cell phone today, maybe. No one, mostly in the world, you kind of need a cell phone. You need, the way it is today, you need, but it's not a darura. It's not something which, if you don't have it, you'll die. But it's something that you need. Like, you don't need a bathroom with a door, with a lock, and a sink, and a mirror, and a toilet. That's a need. You need that, but you're not going to die. You can use the woods, a hole in the ground, and like this, So that's the difference. إِلَّا لِحَاجَةٍ أو ضرورة, or a necessity. لِأَنَّ الدِّينَ, because the deen, amara, commanded, bi'aksi dhalik, with the opposite. Aks, ayn, kaf, sin is the opposite. Bi'aksi dhalik, with the opposite of that. Al-intiqal, al-intiqalu min diyarihim, ila diyaril islami, to the lands out from the moving, intiqal, transitioning, moving from the lands, from their lands to the lands of Islam. Any questions?
La. I think that you said la yajuzu or la juzi.
La yajuzu.
Zu.
Yajuzu is a verb, present tense, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing in front of it. La yajuz is this la is not the la of a nahiya. It's the la of a nafiya. La of a nafiya. The la of negation. Not prohibition. Even though someone could argue and say it's prohibition, right? Because it's telling you it's not permissible. But here is really information. It's not prohibiting you. Don't sit. It's prohibiting. It's really just saying you didn't sit. You know what I mean? So it's not really a prohibition here. It's more of an information saying, negating that it's possible. So there's nothing in front of it which would make it from those things which are mansub or majrur or madzum. So therefore it's la yajuzu li shakhsi an yadhhaba. طيب. والدليل قوله تعالى إن الذين توافاهم الملائكة ظالمي أنفسهم قالوا فيما كنتم قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض قالوا ألم تكن أرض الله واسعة فتهاجروا فيها فأولئك مأواهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. والدليل, in the evidence, is his statement, the Most High, إن الذين, verily those, توافهم الملائكة, توفاهم from waw, fa, alif, or ya, alif maksura, or ya, however you want to look at it when you look it up. توفاهم, right? Meaning al-malaika. Al-malaika here is your file. That's why the dhamma is on there. It's marfu'. That the angels cause them to die. Tawaffa. Tuwufiya with a dhamma and a kasra on the fa. This is to die. Tuwaffa is to cause to die. Right? Tuwufiya mathalan. So if we say Tuwufiya a sheikh fi sana kada. The sheikh died in such and such year. Tuwufi. He died. Like in Tawaffa, meaning to cause to die. Tawaffahum al-malaika. Verily those who the angels take their souls, basically. Right? Zalimi anfusihim. Zalimi anfusihim. They wronging themselves. Zalimina. Zalimina with a noon. But because it becomes mudaf ilayh, we drop the noon. Zalimi anfusihim. They take their souls in the state. And this is why this is mansub, because inshallah it's the hal. It's the hal, the condition. What are they? They are wronging themselves. Right? That's the state. The angels take their soul and they're wronging themselves. Qalu, they say, that meaning the angels, Fima kuntum. Fi plus ma. And sometimes you find it with the alif here, and sometimes you find it not. That's how Uthman had the Quran written. Fima kuntum. In what were you? In what were you guys? In what state were you guys? قالوا, they said, or they will say, kunna, we were, mustad'afina. Mustad'afina from dad, ayn, fa, like the word da'if. We were weak. Fil ard. We were the weak ones, the oppressed ones in the earth. Qalu, meaning they were living in a land where they were caused to do sins and transgressions, right? They were living in a land where everyone around them was doing it, and if they didn't do it, then, you know, they were going to be made fun of. They weren't going to Jummah because if they went to Jummah, they'd lose their job, and they weren't growing their beards because if they grew their beards, they couldn't get a job, and if they fasted, then they weren't able to pass the test and they couldn't get a job, and blah, blah, blah. So they were sinning. They were doing wrong to themselves because of their environment. قَالُوا كُنَّا مُسْتَدْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. We were weak in the earth. قَالُوا, the angels are going to say, أَلَمْ, is a question. أَلَمْ تَكُنْ, and takun was originally with a wow. But because of the lam, it became medzum. Got two sukoons, we get rid of our. Alam takun ardullahi wasi'ah. Isn't the earth, wasn't the earth, or isn't the earth wasi'ah, spacious? Fatuhajiru fiha. So you could make hijrah in it. So you could make hijrah in it. Wasn't Allah's earth spacious enough to get away from them people? You could make hijrah in it. فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ. So those, مَأْوَاهُمْ, مَأْوَاهُمْ means their resting place. Their final destination, Jahannam, is Jahannam. Their final resting place is Jahannam. وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. And an evil way, an evil destination, or an evil way that they're following, right? Lamma, lam, huh?
No.
Lamma, when? Lam yuhajiru. Yuhajiru. Lam yuhajiru. Again, this was yuhajiruna, but because of the lam, it makes it majzoom. And the sign of its being majzoom is a hadaf, a noon, right? You drop the noon. Lam yuhajiru. When they didn't make hijrah, al-malaikatu qalat, they said, lilladina lam yuhajiru, they said to those who didn't make hijrah, fima kuntum, in what were you, what was your state? Qalu kunna mustad'afina fil ard, they said we were weak in the earth. Fataqulu lahum al-malaika, so the angels say to them, alam takun ardullahi wasiya, isn't Allah's earth spacious? Min bab tabkit lahum. Min bab tabkit lahum. From the chapter of, and this is tabkit is from ba, kaf, ya, right? Like the word beki, meaning to make them cry or to make them lament, to make them sad over what they did, right? Tabkit, to make them cry, to make them lament, to make them mourn, to make them feel bad about what they did, right? Lahum, to make them, this is from the chapter, or from the angle, the bab, the door of, why did they do this? They did this from the bab of tabkit. They were trying to make them cry and feel bad and feel remorse over what they did. Allahu qal, Allah said, فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا, that those that are resting places, Jahannam, وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا, and an evil way, or resting, or evil destination, لِعَدَمِ hijratihim. Li here is due. Li here is the sabab, right? The reason. The adami hijratihim, due to the absence. Adam means the absence. Hijratihim, the absence of their hijrah. Fadalla ala an al hijra wajiba. Fadalla, so it proves فدل, like to prove, to point to, على أن الهجرة, to it proves that basically hijra واجبة is wajib, is obligatory. لمن يستطيع, لمن يستطيع, right? For whoever has the ability. Any questions?
Nah.
Okay, let's go up top and read then. Abba Sumayya. Oh, la ilaha illallah. I'm sorry, give me a second here. I went all the way to the top. تفضل.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يعني وجوب هذه العبادة لا يزال، والإجرة فريضة على هذه الأمة من بلد الشرك إلى بلد الإسلام، وهي باقية إلى أن تقوم الساعة. يعني هذه العبادات لا زالت تحصل في مكان يعصى الله فيه، وليس بالشرك، فإنما فيه اسم، ويجب عليه إلى بلد فيه طاعة، وليس ذلك مخصوص بالشرك إلى الإسلام، بل حتى من بلد المعصية إلى بلد الطاعة، ومن هنا يتبين أنه لا يجوز لشخص أن يذهب إلى ديار غير المسلمين إلا الحجة أو ضرورة، لأن الدين أمر الانتقال من ديارهم إلى دار الإسلام. ودليل قوله تعالى: إن الذين توفاهم الملائكة ظالمين قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض، لم تكن أرض الله واسعة فتهاجروا إلى مأواهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. لم يؤاجروا الملائكة قالت للذين لم يؤاجروا فيما كنتم كنا مستضعفين في الأرض، فتقول لهم الملائكة لم تكن أرض الله واسعة من باب التبكيت لهم. الله قال: أولئك مأواهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا، لعدم هجرتهم فدل على أن الهجرة واجبة على أن الهجرة واجبة لمن
يستطيع. نعم. يلا عبد الله.
Well, hijratu فريدة على هذه الأمة من بلد الشرك إلى بلد الإسلام وهي باكية إلا أن تقوم الساعة يعني وجب هذه العبادة لا زالت وكفى إذا كان شخص في مكان يؤسي الله
في مكان
what I said مكان
No, you said في مكان. But what's
في
before
مكان
مكان? What's before مكان?
في مكان
في مكان.
okay في مكان
There's no alif lam, right? And it's not mudaf ilayh.
yeah.
So therefore, no.
Okay, we got that. يؤسي الله فيه وليس بشك وإنما بفسق فيجب عليه الهجرة إلا بلد فيه طاعة وليس ذلك مخصوصا بشك إلا الإسلام بل حتى من بلدي right بلدي not بلدين بلدي it's Maladin too
No.
all of them from that the pronoun whatever it is
Because it's not
Baladin
mudaf ilayh. إلا
Okay.
baladin.
no من ثم حتى من بلدي
Baladi
or baladin
ma'asiya. No, baladi.
Okay,
Because it's
baladi.
mudaf ilayh.
okay من بلدي معصيات إلا بلدي طاعة ومن هنا يتبين أنه لا يجوز للشخص أن يذهب
And يذهب.
إلا it's not out. No, because of the yeah. Okay. And
It doesn't matter.
يذهب.
Noun or verb. What does and do to what comes after it?
Makes it mansub.
So and يذهب.
And يذهب.
I'm asking you. يذهب. What goes on the back?
I said يذهب. يذهب.
There you go.
What did I say? يذهب.
Yeah.
I think that's habit. يذهب إلا ديار غير المسلمين إلا لحاجة أو ضرورة
Sarur.
ضرورة
No, I'm saying. What is it?
أو ضرورة ضرورة لأن الدين أمر بعكس ذلك الانتقال من ديارهم إلى ديار الإسلام والدليل قوله تعالى إن الذين توفاهم الملائكة ظالمي أنفسهم قالوا فيها كنتم قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض قالوا ألم تكن أرض الله واسعة فتهاجروا فيها فأولئك مأواهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا لما لم يهاجروا الملائكة قالت لديني لم يهاجروا للذين okay للذين I don't know what I look للذين لم يهاجروا فيما كنتم قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض فتقول لهم الملائكة ألم تكن أرض الله واسعة
نعم
من باب التبكيت لهم الله قال فأولئك مأواهم جهنم وساءت مسيرة لعدم هجرتهم فدل على أن الهجرة واجبة لمن يستطيع. That's probably overdid that one. Yeah.
من يستطيع. No problem.
يستطيع.
No problem. Okay, it's up to you guys. Do you want to do this next little half a page, or do you just want to just make it wait? It's up to y'all.
Yeah, no matter me.
Let's go ahead.
Okay, it shouldn't take that long. After it's the ayah. إلا المستضعفين. This is a continuation of the ayah. إلا المستضعفين من الرجال والنساء والولدان لا يستطيعون حيلة ولا يهتدون سبيلا فأولئك عسى الله أن يعفو عنهم وكان الله عفوا غفورا. إلا المستضعفين. This is the same word used before. They said that we're weak, but they were claiming to be weak. That mustad'afina, if you look at the tafsir, that's just a claim they were making. They weren't really weak. Here, this is the ones that Allah is giving them. These are the real weak ones, except the mustad'afina. Min al-rijali wal-nisa'i wal-wildan, from the men and the women and the children. Wildan. Another plural we know is awlad. Here, wildan, right? And the children. La yastati'una. They weren't able. Hilatan. A way out, an escape. Right? Like la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. No might, no power. They didn't have that hila. They didn't have that escape or that answer, that solution. وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ سَبِيلًا. And they weren't guided away. They didn't have a way. They weren't guided to a way out. Right? They didn't know the way out. They didn't know how to get away. فَأُولَئِكَ. So those, عَسَى اللَّهُ. Asa means perhaps, like لَعَلَّ. عَسَى اللَّهُ, like أَسَاكُمْ بِخَيْرٍ. A famous statement here in Kuwait, asakum bi khair, right? In the Arab world in general. We hope it is hoped that you are in good, right? Asakum bi khair. Hopefully you're good, right? Like you walk into a gathering, kayfa halakum, asakum bi khair. Hopefully you're doing good, right? Asallahu, perhaps Allah, and ya'fuwa. This is from afau ya'fu. And it's, if it was marfu' Abdullah, if it was marfu', we would say ya'fu. And we wouldn't say ya'fuwu. We would say this is a fi'l mudari, a present tense verb, which is marfu'. And the sign of it being marfu' is a dhamma, which is implied due to the thickness of saying ya'fuwu. Ya'fu is too difficult to say. So therefore, we say ya'fu. But when it comes in a mansub form, then we're able to say it's fi'l mudari, present tense verb, mansub, with a fatha, which is apparent. Why? Because it's easy to say ya'fuwa. And ya'fuwa anhum. Perhaps Allah will pardon them. Ya'fu, pardon. In Allahumma innaka afu tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Oh Allah, you are pardoning, you love pardoning, so pardon us, right? وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَفُوًّا غَفُورًا. And verily Allah is or was afuwan, pardoning and forgiving. وَقَوْلُهُ ta'ala, and his statement, يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّ أَرْضِي وَاسِعَةٌ فَإِيَّايَ فَاعْبُدُونَ. O my slaves, Ya ibadi, O my slaves, alladhina amanu, who believe, O my slaves who believe, inna ardi, verily my earth, wasi'ah, is spacious, fa iyaya, like iyaka, right? So me alone, fa'budun. So me alone, iyaya is me alone, not iyaka, you alone. Not when we're talking, iyaka na'budu, but him, he's talking, Allah Azza wa Jal. Fa iyaya, so to me alone, fa'buduni, worship. So me alone, worship, right? قال البغوي, who's famous for tafsir, rahimahullah ta'ala, سبب النزول هذه الآية في المسلمين الذين بمكة ولم يهاجروا ناداهم الله باسم الإيمان. So Baghawi, he says here regarding this ayah, سبب النزول, the reason for the sending down, هذه الآية, of this ayah, في المسلمين, is regarding, here fi means in the Muslims, but here mean regarding the Muslims. Alladhina, who be Mekkata, were in Mecca. Mecca is mamnu min as-sarf, so it's majrur with a fatha. Is regarding those Muslims who were in Mecca. Walam yuhajiru, and they didn't make hijrah. He didn't make hijrah. This ayah here he's talking about, right? This second ayah, Ya ibadi alladhina amanu, inna ardi wasiyatun fayyaya fa'budun, right? O my slaves who believe, indeed my earth is spacious, so to me alone you worship, right? Those سبب النزول هذه الآية في المسلمين الذين بمكة ولم يهاجروا. The reason for the revelation of this ayah is the Muslims who were in Mecca and they didn't make hijrah. Nadahum, from Nun Dal Ya, or Alif Maksura. Nada, to call. The adhan is called a nida, also a call. Nadahum, Allah called them. Allah, Lafzul Jalala is the file here. Nadahum, he called them Bismil Iman, with the name of Iman. Meaning, they didn't make hijrah, but that didn't make them kuffar. That didn't, yani, Ya ayyuhal muslimun, O you Muslims, meaning, O you Muslims, fi diyari ghayrul muslimin, in the lands of other than the Muslims, ardi wasi'a, my earth is spacious. Idhabu li diyar al-Islam, go to the lands of Islam. But it didn't make them kuffar because they didn't make hijrah. They were still believers. It didn't make them kuffar, but they were still believers. Right? That's the point he wants to make here. Right? Allah called them, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he called them believers, even though they had not made hijrah. وَالدَّلِيلُ عَلَى الْهِجْرَةِ مِنَ السُنَّةِ, and the evidence for hijrah from the sunnah, قَوْلُهُ sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his statement sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا تنقطع الحجرة حتى تنقطع توبة. تنقطع is from قاف طاء عين, meaning to cut. Here, meaning to be cut off. It is not going to end. لا تنقطع الحجرة. Hijrah is not going to stop. It's not going to be cut off. حتى, until تنقطع توبة, until Tawbah is cut off, until Tawbah is stopped. وَلَا تَنْقَطِعُ التَّوْبَةُ, and Tawbah will not be cut off or stopped. حَتَّى تَطْلُعَ الشَّمْسُ مِنْ مَغْرِبِهَا, until the sun, الشَّمْسُ, rises, تَطْلُعَ, from ta lam ain tala'a, to rise, until the sun rises, min maghribiha, from its setting place, meaning from the west, right? لا تنقطع الهجرة حتى تنقطع التوبة. Hijrah is not going to stop until Tawbah is stopped or is cut off. ولا تنقطع التوبة, and Hijrah and Tawbah will not be cut off حتى تطلع الشمس من مغربها, until the sun, and Tawbah will not be cut off until the sun rises from its setting place or the west. Questions?
Yeah.
Fadl ya Abdullah.
إلا مستضعفين من الرجال والنساء والولدان لا تستطيعون حيلة ولا يهتدون سبيلا فأولئك عسى الله أن يعفو عنهم وكان الله عفوا غفورا. وقوله تعالى يا عبادي الذين آمنوا إن أرضي واسعة فإياي فاعبدون. قال البغوي رحمه الله تعالى سبب نزول هذه الآيات في المسلمين الذين بمكة ولم يهاجروا نادهم الله باسم الإيمان، يعني يا أيها المسلمون في ديار غير المسلمين أرضي واسعات اذهبوا لديار سياتو اذهبوا لديار الإسلام. والدليل على الهجرة من السنة قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تنقطع الهجرة حتى تنقطع التوبة ولا تنقطع التوبة حتى تطلع الشمس من مغربها.
يلا أبا سمية.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إلا المستضعفين من الرجال والنساء والولدان لا يستطيعون حيلة ولا يهتدون سبيلا أولئك عسى الله أن يعفو عنهم وكان الله عفوا غفورا. وقوله يا عبادي الذين وسعت حياتهم. قال البغوي رحمه الله تعالى سبب نزول هذه الآيات في المسلمين الذي مكة ولم يهاجروا ناداهم الله باسم الإيمان، يعني يا أيها المسلمون في ديار غير الأرض واسعة اذهبوا بديار الإسلام. والدليل على الهجرة لسنة قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تنقطع الهجرة حتى تنقطع التوبة، ولا تنقطع التوبة حتى تطلع الشمس من مغربها.
نعم. الله يبارك فيكم. Inshallah, يوم السبت we'll meet and we'll continue bismillah with the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from these Thalathat-ul-Usul.
Inshallah.
خير. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.